Hello, good evening. Keir Starmer has now got 72 MPs calling for him to resign. I personally thought they would have waited till maybe later on in the year or something, or try and get Burnham in there as quickly as possible, but I don't think it's going to be that, and I reckon it's going to be a lot sooner that Keir Starmer's going to be resigning. But we'll see. I don't know. There could be a number of people going into the hat. Oh, they're going to talk about it now, so let's jump right into it.
Then it'll be hard to ignore that.
So, Kevin, as a, I think, lifelong Labour supporter, hearing that the suggestion...
Tactical voter, please.
Tactical voter? Very
voted
interesting.
6, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this debate, a left-leaning journalist, hearing that, some in the Labour Party think they're about to put themselves out of power, that this is sort of existential for them as a party. Yeah. What is the point of voting for Labour anymore, given what we saw on Thursday and what we've seen over the weekend? How concerned are you about the state of the party?
Yeah, well...
And reflect on what Michelle was saying about...
Well, I think how some MPs feel, Labour Party members, was summed up by Ian Lavery, a former coal miner, Northumberland MP, who said Keir Hardie formed Labour and another Keir Starmer, who's actually named after Keir Hardie, could end the party. And I think that's where they feel it's existential.
Let's have a look at the possible MPs.
I can go back to resignations. Prime Minister's been forced out all the way to Margaret Thatcher in 1990. I had black hair then. But I just caution, I think this is the end, but I'll just caution that Tony Blair in 2006, the Curry House plot against him, was a year before he went, but he did give an undertaking he would go. And I do recall in 2009, Gordon Brown suffered 3 cabinet resignations, the Home Secretary, the Work and Pensions Secretary and the Community Secretary, and he survived. But this feels like the end. And, of course, Keir Starmer will be weighing up. He'll be thinking, who are the loyals and who are the traitors? Is what he'll be doing. Who can I have standing by me? Who will be against me? And will those cabinet ministers who want him to go, will they, 1, speak out publicly, and 2, will they resign? Or are they just going to do it internal pressure? And then there is a whole question of, is it go now? Is it a timetable in September? Because there's a lot of power play here.
So what it's saying here on Google is the possible people that could go in for it, and it could change anyway. It's saying Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, but he's very unlikely. Sabana Mahmood. You got Al Khan's Armed Forces Minister. You got John Healey, Defence Secretary, and Yvette Cooper, Foreign Secretary. Okay. I reckon there'll be probably more, though. We'll see.
But I think you raise a really interesting point here, Kevin, because actually there is a move amongst some of the Streeting supporters, this is what other MPs tell me, to try and make this quite a fast process because that would benefit Wes Streeting. There is a massive group in the parliamentary party that want Andy Burnham back. And I guess my thought of this evening is, if this is forced and they force a quick contest and Andy Burnham cannot join the fray and stand up and fight, what legitimacy does the next Prime Minister have? Because there will be a group in the party that really want Andy Burnham and they're just repeating those issues. I think that is a real issue, but equally for Wes Streeting and his allies to allow Burnham back in does him in because Burnham will beat Wes Streeting with the members, and this is if we go back to that cabinet minister that said that this is really chaotic,
and it
could just do a lot of internal damage to the Labour Party, both
and I know
as a movement, but also with the.
I know everyone's saying that Angela Rayner has got an investigation and stuff, but it was literally an accident, and she did not mean for that to happen, or she'd still be in her job now. It was a pure accident. So I still think that she'll have a chance, and I think she should go in for it compared to some of them.
Looking ahead to that cabinet meeting tomorrow, how crucial will it be? How awkward will it be? What is likely to happen?
crucial and awkward, I'm sure. Yes, I've been here since around about 5 o'clock this afternoon. The two
It'll be nice
cabinet
to
ministers
see
we've seen go in
Labour
through the
have
front
the
door. Well, first of
woman
all,
Prime
John
Minister
Healey,
for
who walked
Labour.
up Downing Street from the Ministry of
they've yet
Defence
to have
across
one.
Whitehall. And then we saw Steve Reid go in. He arrived in a car, having done some broadcast interviews, including Sky News. Then we did actually also see some government cars go in the side door. They may well have been Shabana Mahmood, who we understand
Shabana,
seems to be leading
she'll be a good
the
idea.
moves inside the cabinet to force the Prime Minister to set out his timetable. Yvette Cooper's another name mentioned. There are conflicting reports about David Lammy's role. We haven't seen him here, but you can probably see the lights are still burning brightly in 10 Downing Street.
Oh, I bet.
Not
To
the
be a
bunker
fly on the
exactly,
wall
that's
in
the
there.
first floor lights, but the Prime Minister is holed up in there, or has been holed up in there with his team, his Downing Street team, clearly trying to...
Oh, sorry, adverts. It's Sky News.
Home Secretary telling you the game's up. I mean, like Kevin, I remember back to 1990. On that occasion, November 1990, of course, all the drama was over in Parliament, and minister after minister, they all went in one by one to tell Margaret Thatcher the game was up. And I remember
You know what? I
Kenneth
was
Clark was one
really
of
young
those,
when
and
all
she
that was
wrote in her
going on with
memoirs that he was a
Margaret Thatcher.
candid friend.
Maggie-
We have seen it all before. We've seen
Maggie
resignations that
Thatcher,
led
the
to
milk
Boris
snatcher and
Johnson
all
going.
that.
But really, tomorrow's cabinet
Maggie,
meeting is
out,
crucial
out.
because whether they'll
I
all
was
be
in
asked to
primary
sign in
school then, I
blood their
think,
loyalty
yeah.
to the PM, that won't work.
Really
Clearly,
young.
he's beyond that now. What began with a lot of the usual suspects calling for him to go, and then a lot of the newer MPs. This is the Sky News spreadsheet. What I think is very significant, of the 70 or so names on this spreadsheet, 38 of them are MPs first elected in 2024, and MPs, many of them won their seat from the Conservatives and are clearly worried they're going to lose it at the next general election. So what began with backbenchers, and then, of course, we had some parliamentary private secretaries quitting as well. They've been replaced tonight very swiftly by number 10, incidentally. And then, of course, this move by the cabinet, led by the Home Secretary, and probably including the Foreign Secretary as well. And we all already know that it's claimed that Ed Miliband told him a few days ago the game was up. He had to set out a timetable. So everything's going to happen tomorrow morning, no doubt. Tense atmosphere in there in the cabinet room. Wouldn't be surprised if the civil servants are asked to leave the room and it's a political cabinet. It's showdown time, and it's the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer.
John, thank you very much indeed. So
ages
showdown
ago.
time, paint a picture, if you can, of that cabinet meeting tomorrow, because, the roads here are all closed for them to rehearse the King's speech on Wednesday. I mean, the timing of the next couple of days is really quite extraordinary.
I mean, I heard different variants of what might happen. There was a view that cabinet ministers would go in individually, which is what I think we've seen in the past few hours, but also would cabinet ministers say something around the table tomorrow. And certainly Wes Streeting, a would-be contender and challenger, has not spoken to the Prime Minister, and he will see him, he will face him at that table tomorrow. So things could move very quickly. As I said, the Prime Minister and some of his closest cabinet allies, David Lammy and Johnny Reynolds, the Chief Whip, who was before that the Business Secretary, have been in number 10, calling people round. As John was reporting, Steve Reid went in while I was also at Downing Street, and I said, is he going to resign, Steve Reid? And he was like, absolutely not, and in he went. But they've been phoning around and trying to gauge the support from the party. And I think what was striking tonight was back in February when Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, called on the resignation of Keir Starmer, called for it. There was, within an hour, pretty much the whole cabinet coming out publicly to support the Prime Minister, and it has been a very, very different story today. We've seen 60+
Well, I
MPs
see that as a show of
saying that he
defiance
should stand
towards
down.
reform.
We've seen that trickle turning into sort of steady flow.
Deep down, they knew that they wanted him out.
Aides calling him for
But I
him
don't
to
know,
go,
for me it's
and
too
now
soon.
a
Maybe-
couple of the
maybe
cabinet for sure
do it a bit
have
later.
told him set out a timetable. And as we were just talking about, you know, that's the Shabana Mahmood, Yvette Cooper, and we understand that Ed Miliband has already told him that. Maybe he's told him again tonight. That I do not know. And so what you're seeing is, even if there's a silent majority of MPs in the Parliamentary Labour Party, which I think there are, that don't want this to happen, when as a Prime Minister you are being so publicly challenged by so many of your party, and it's not just in a Wes Streeting base, it is across the party, it simply becomes unsustainable because your authority has gone and then the dam bursts, if you like. And so, you know, one cabinet minister told me tonight that Starmer is weighing up his options and he's going to have a very long night thinking about what he should do. I mean, up until this point, he has been so resolute. Even this morning at that speech saying, I will fight on, I'm not going to plunge the country into chaos. I cannot imagine how frustrated he must
but
feel.
he's going to keep fighting
I think
at
he
the
must feel
expense of
so
Labour, and then you're going to let
frustrated
Reform
because
walk in through the
he
door with
wants
the
to
keys in hand.
carry on, he wants to serve, he's
There you go,
lost the
Nigel, you live
backing
here now.
of too
I
many
put
of
too much effort in
his
trying to
own and
keep
his
my job.
party. But I think, as per that cabinet minister that spoke to me earlier, and other people that aren't particularly supportive of Keir Starmer, they're very worried about the chaos that this could unleash. And actually, does that just help Labour's political opponents? But I think what's happened is the emotion of those losses and the sort of the grinding dissatisfaction over many months for the Starmer administration, it's just kind of boiled over and it's got a bit out of control.
I think it's been one thing after another,
Yeah.
and you can go all the way back to winter fuel, then come up to Mandelson, and then losing 1,400 seats. And
Yeah.
you hear the despair from cabinet ministers because a lot of it's become very personal. And they, MPs, councillors, activists,
it's just one thing
ministers
after
too,
another.
here on the doorstep, that Labour voters
What
have
next?
turned against
You know?
the Prime Minister. Fairly or unfairly, they consider him a dud, and they will not consider voting
Yeah.
Labour while he is there. So it's become incredibly
just-
personal
I guess you're
for
just
him,
letting
and it
nails keep getting
overshadows
hammered into
whatever
the
he
coffin at
says
this
are
point.
the achievements, lifting 500,000 kids out of poverty. Did that reluctantly, but he's done it. You know, breakfast clubs, minimum wage rises, NHS getting better, not having the Iran war, whatever you say, it keeps coming back to Keir Starmer. People don't like him. And is Labour salvageable itself? Some cabinet ministers I've spoken to think it is.
As a
think the
person,
Labour
he's
Party
probably all
brand
right,
can
but
be
as-
saved, but it
as
has
a
to be under new
politician,
management,
he's-
new
well, Prime
leadership.
Minister,
And
he's
if you have
actually
3
really
years
rubbish.
to make your case, you can. And if you look
He's
at
let a
the
bunch of people down,
figures behind the reform success
especially
of 1,400
disabled, trans
plus
people.
councillors they gained, you know, Sunderland,
promises before you got into
Gateshead,
power
South Tynes,
and
in
turned
my
your
in my
back.
backyard. If you look at the figures
Waspy.
nationwide, the extrapolation for the share of the poll is only 26-27%. You would not win a majority on that. They've been falling back in national polls. They were down on last year in those elections. So there are some in Labour who believe if they make the change, as brutal and as bloody as it is, they'll have a fighting
Kevin,
chance in 3
like,
years' time.
honestly, because you are such an expert on the Labour Party, and genuinely, I really want to hear your answer to this, because if Burnham cannot stand in a
can't.
leadership race now,
Yeah.
whoever replaces Starmer, if that is what comes to pass, and we don't know yet, they've got a massive legitimacy issue, haven't
Yes,
they, within
would,
the party?
it will look as if they've won an unfair competition because the name on most lips and arguably the most popular in the country, or it's because he's great at Manchester Mayor, he's not tested in the same way you are if you're a cabinet minister, but nevertheless, he's got popularity and he can reach people that the others can't, then yes. Then you're kind of the shadow leader because you knocked out the man who should have been leader because he's not standing in Parliament.
So can I ask a question then?
Yeah.
Who will drive the timetable, and whose gift is it in, that timetable?
Ultimately, it's in the gift of the National Executive Committee, the governing body on which Starmer this morning had
a majority,
control,
yeah.
but people can melt away very, very quickly. The
Well,
king is
Shabana
dead.
Mahmood-
Long live the king or
Shabana
queen.
Mahmood was a clear. I mean, in
Yep.
blocking Andy Burnham from standing in the Gorton
She's
and
the
Denton
chair.
by-election, Shabana, who was the chair, was the person that helped block that, and now she's the person that says Starmer should
I think
go.
she may have abstained on the formal vote, but it was quite clear she was.
You see, that's
Yeah,
why he's
she
an expert.
was doing
Yeah.
the Prime Minister's bidding.
Yeah.
So having watched the Conservative Party tear itself apart, we're not yet 2 years into this administration. You know, I mean, we're nowhere near 2 years, really, if you think about it. Are you really shocked that Labour has done this to themselves, or the decisions taken by Starmer and Reeves has led to this position so quickly?
Yeah, I think nobody anticipated it was going to go this quickly. And I think what makes it worse is this was meant to be no drama Starmer, wasn't it? And he waxed lyrical about how change was coming. He was going to do things differently. And as soon as he got in, we had the whole big saga about the suits and the glasses and all of that. And then it was just one U-turn after another. I think we're up to 16 now. Then we had the Mandelson stuff.
Yeah, but a lot of them
Now
were really
we've got
bad
this on
ideas
top
to
of it.
begin
So
with, and you had
these
to
MPs
U-turn
are feeling
on
really bruised because their inboxes have been battering
Trying
them.
to
Their
be too
constituents, when they've been
right-wing.
knocking on
You're
the
not
doors, have
right-wing
been
parties,
angry
stop
with
pretending
them.
to be.
And they're worried about their seats as well. They've looked at these council elections
Those on
and
the
they've
right are
thought,
going to vote for reform,
we're going to lose
regardless
as well,
of
and we
anything,
have to do
no matter what you
something.
do.
And what do they have to do in their mind? They have to get rid of their leader and refresh and renew and pivot in a different direction. And some of them will have held out hope that today's speech would have offered some of the answers. But I think it's actually made the situation
Keir
worse.
Starmer will be the 6th Prime Minister to be dumped in 10 years. But he a longer term than Liz Truss, obviously. Rishi Sunak. Boris Johnson only lasted 2.5 years. It was December 2019, then he was gone in the summer of 22. I think politics has changed, and the era where you could stay a long spell has gone, and maybe it's a reflection of social media, instant judgments, pressure, MPs constantly worried about their seats in a way they
just not
weren't
doing your job right.
before.
If I look back on that night when Keir Starmer was elected in July 2024 with a majority of what it was, I can't even remember what it was massive,
I'll let her
like
hear what she
450
says, and now I'm going to call
plus seats.
Yeah,
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
172, I think, was the majority.
Yes,
yeah.
450 MPs,
Yeah.
a massive majority, nearly tapping on the size of Blair's majorities at the height of New Labour. If you'd said to me 2 years later the Labour Party would be forcing Keir Starmer out of number 10, I would not have believed it.
But OK, we do need to take a break. I know everyone's got their...
Yeah, we'll leave it there as well. I'm going to be on tomorrow. I'm going to upload another video, and we'll see what happens. Maybe when I turn on the news, I'll see a Keir Starmer at the door of number 10 saying he's he's going, he's gone, he's done. Okay, cool. Hit that like and subscribe, and until next time.